So, when you don't know how to do something, how to fix something, or how something works, what do? Ask a teacher? Ask your parents? Ask your friends? Ask someone you really know and trust? No! You go to the internet and ask some randos. But I'm not talking about creeps here, I hope. No, I mean the people of the internet! You know, those people who make how-to videos. Because chances are, if you're trying to figure out something, someone on the internet has already figured it out for you. Things like, how do I unsend a text? No. How do I do a winged eyeliner? How do I get rid of the zit by Friday night? How do I get out of gym class? How do I screen cap Snapchat without getting caught? They'll never know. But then there are things in life that don't have an easy fix, that don't have a simple solution, that don't have a how-to video. Things like what to do when you have problems with family, or when it seems like you have no control in your life, or what to do when someone has done something to you. I mean, clearly, they gotta go. The truth is, there's a lot of life that doesn't have a solution you can just find online. So how do you know what to do when you don't know what to do?
Hey, what's up guys? Hey, do any of you have that friend in your life where instead of just texting you words, they'll basically just put it all in emojis, where they can't even like fire off a single text without like a couple different emojis just like all in that text? I know I have friends like that. Sometimes I have friends where, you know, like the little GIFs you can send. I'll just have those text conversations where I feel like it's just those little GIFs back and forth, and we don't even like exchange words at that point. So I don't know, maybe you guys are that friend, maybe you have those friends, I don't know. For me, my favorite emojis right now, I'd say I have 3 favorite emojis. The first one that I'm using more often is this little surfer guy. This one has a pretty wide use, at least for me. Usually it just means like, I'm about to do something epic with my friends. We're gonna go longboarding, we're gonna go skimboarding, we're gonna go on a crazy road trip, or anything like that. That's where the surfer emoji guy would go. Like, yeah, let's go. My second favorite emoji is this guy with like his brain just exploding. If any of you know me, you know that that's usually my reaction when something is just blowing my mind. Maybe one of you will text me with such a deep thought about just life that I'm like, whoa, I can't even like fathom that right now. You know, so it's like brain exploding. I use that a lot for sure. My third emoji I end up using a lot, and it's a little bit more serious, is this one, kind of with the, you know, oh, I'm in pain. And sometimes I use it for funny things. Like sometimes if a friend sends me a meme that is so funny, I'll send this one. But sometimes this emoji is more of like almost like a speechless kind of response to something. And sometimes I use it for more serious situations where I'll get a text and it's something really serious and hard that happened, and I have just no words. And that's kind of my only response is, oh, this sucks. And sometimes that's what emojis are for, right? When you don't have even words to put to something how you're feeling, where you're just shocked. And this kind of feeling of like speechless, of just no words to even respond to something really hard, is actually what we're gonna talk about today. So I want you guys to think for just a quick sec. Have you ever felt that way, where you're so speechless, some kind of bad news you got in your life where you just don't even have words? Sometimes that emoji is all you can even just show. For me, I feel like that when a friend or family has to go to the hospital, there's not a lot of words to say to that. I know also for me, I had a close friend and mentor I looked up to that passed away about a week or 2 ago. And that was the same thing. I had no words. And maybe a lot of you are just feeling like that in general right now. Or maybe you had a friend that had something mean to say to you, but they accidentally sent it to you because it was like about you in the text. And you knew immediately they meant to send it to someone else. That's a tough one. Maybe some of you who are joining us who are now 6th graders, welcome again, by the way. Maybe you felt this way when the end of your 5th grade year got cut short and you didn't know how to process some of those feelings of, man, I'm not gonna have the last field day. I'm not gonna have this kind of 5th grade celebration. And it's hard to understand. Unfortunately, I could go on and on about things like this, and I know you guys could too, of examples where your world just got rocked by some kind of shocking news or circumstance. If you haven't experienced it yet, there will be a time in your life where this kind of stuff happens. And the thing about these shockingly painful moments is that often they kind of hit us out of nowhere. And because of that, it's difficult for us to know how to feel. And because of that, sometimes it's difficult how to know how to respond. I don't know about you guys, but I think all of us are shocked in a way about just everything happening in our country and our world right now. And it's difficult how to even know how to respond. I mean, sometimes we surprise ourselves by how well we handle it. We think, wow, I figure news like this would take me to the edge, but I'm actually doing okay. Or sometimes you might be surprising yourself by how much it tears you apart. You might think, I don't even know why I'm so upset about this, but I'm just a mess right now. Sometimes we feel closer to God when stuff rocks us, but other times we wonder where God is at all. And because we're all wired differently, we all experience hurt differently. But that doesn't change the fact that hurt hurts, right? And when life hurts, we all find ourselves wondering what to do next. And honestly, that's why we're doing this series called What to Do When You Don't Know What to Do. And I think we all can relate to that feeling. We can all relate to those situations that just have the no word emoji in response, that level of shock. And we're looking at the story of this guy in the Bible named Joseph, who had that same kind of shock of news that happened to him. We began this series last week about talking about Joseph's story. And if you didn't watch it last week, I encourage you to watch it on either Instagram or YouTube. But we're going to continue this week about a part of Joseph's story that can only be described with this emoji. So if you weren't with us last week, just to catch you up, Joseph, who we're looking at, is one of the most famous people in the Old Testament, so the first part of the Bible. And Joseph, he had some family drama that he definitely played a part in creating too. See, he was his dad's favorite child, and therefore he was given some special treatment compared to his brothers. And on top of that, he had this crazy dream that his brothers and even his parents bowed down to him out of respect and honor. And because Joseph seemed to have a hard time picking up the social cues around him, he shared his dream with his family. I mean, can you imagine going to your family being like, hey, I had this dream that, you guys were gonna bow down to me and like buy me a Tesla because you respected me so much. That would come off a little weird. And so you can imagine his brothers were not okay with him being his dad's favorite. His brothers were not okay with him sharing his dreams of ruling over them someday. So how did they respond? Check this out. In Genesis 37:18, it says, "But they saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him." Okay, so this went from like 0 to 100 real quick, but the story goes on. It says in verse 19 and 20, it says, "Here comes that dreamer," his brothers said to each other. "Come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of those cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams." Despite all this anger towards Joseph, one of his brothers actually kind of had a positive thought in the moment. It says, when Reuben heard this, so one of Joseph's brothers, he tried to rescue him from their hands. "Let's not take his life," he said. "Don't shed any blood. Throw him into this cistern here," which was kind of like this big water tank. "Throw him into this cistern here in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him." Reuben said this to rescue him from them and take him back to his father. So obviously, thank goodness for Reuben, right? Trying to come and save Joseph's life. He convinced his brothers to throw Joseph into a well instead of actually going to kill him. And he even planned to come back to this well and rescue Joseph later. And the brothers actually listened to Reuben. And when Joseph was approaching them from afar, they ripped off the special coat that Joseph's father gave him, and they threw him into this well. And I imagine if Joseph actually had an iPhone, this is probably where he would have texted his best friends, that moment when your brothers hate you and tear up your jacket and throw you into a well with this emoji. That's what I'd imagine. But the brothers aren't done with Joseph yet, because the brothers notice this group of traders approaching, people that would sell different food and objects for money. And Judah, another one of Joseph's many brothers, said, wait, what if we sold Joseph to one of these traders? I mean, after all, selling Joseph to a group of people who most likely would make him a slave is even better than killing him, right? So that's exactly what they did. They go and dip Joseph's coat in the blood of a wild animal. They take it over to their dad and tell him that Joseph was likely attacked and probably just killed by an animal. Like, what a cover story, right? And I think this last line we're gonna read in the story tells us everything we need to know about the situation. The brothers obviously knew that the coat belonged to Joseph. They brought this jacket to Joseph's dad to let their dad know. They obviously noticed the way he favored Joseph. He seemed to be playing favorites. And they were mad about it. It was unfair. They didn't call it Joseph's robe or our brother's robe. They brought it to their dad and they said, your son's robe. What a bunch of jealous jerks, right? And if we were gonna cut back to Joseph right now, I imagine if he was gonna be texting his friends still, he'd say something like, okay, good news, out of the well. Bad news, they sold me. Yep, they sold me, like actually sold me. And, you know, I'm being a little lighthearted, but there was nothing lighthearted about this situation. I mean, we just simply can't imagine like the fear, the despair, the uncertainty and anger and hurt that Joseph must have felt. He just got sold off to people as a slave by his brothers. And I think his brothers were sending a super loud and clear message to Joseph by saying, we are better off without you, man. Like, ouch, that hurts. Like, what do you do to that? How do you respond to that? And today, I mean, our stories are different than Joseph's, obviously, but we all experience some kind of pain, right, in our lives that is just so unspeakable and hard to know what to do with, really. I mean, we all have scary or painful or dangerous moments that can catch us off guard. And unfortunately for Joseph, he had even more shocking moments in his future. And we'll look at some of those in the coming weeks. But I want to highlight 5 powerful words that show up in the historical account of Joseph's life. While these 5 words didn't necessarily keep Joseph from being thrown into a pit or being sold into slavery, but I do think these 5 words made a huge difference and helped Joseph maybe more than anything in this time. And it's these words that come from Genesis 39 verse 2. And the 5 words are, the Lord was with Joseph. You see, obviously Joseph didn't have a lot going on for him in the pit and even less afterwards, getting sold into slavery. But when Joseph was in despair, wondering how life would turn out for him, he could rely on this single truth that God was with him. And this truth, it didn't change the reality of Joseph's situation, but it was better than being alone, right? And this truth didn't mean that Joseph could see where the story was going, but he could know that he wasn't entirely dependent on just him to get himself out of the situation. He knew that God would be there for that. And the truth that God was with him didn't mean that Joseph could just easily deal with things that happened to him. It didn't mean that he had a reason or explanation for all this pain in his life. But he knew that he didn't have to figure it all out on his own. And the same is true for you and me. And this is what I want you guys to know today, is that when there's nothing you can do, God is with you. And I'm just thinking, man, what like a relevant truth for us right now in this crazy time that we're living in. When there's nothing you can do, God is with you. And maybe some of you hear this truth all the time, that God is with you. And so often so that maybe it even loses its meaning. But just think about it for a second. God is with you personally. Not in some weird abstract way, but he's literally present with you right now. He's near you, he's next to you, especially when you feel alone. And when you and I can learn to kind of embrace that truth, it changes things. Our circumstances might not change. After all, Joseph wasn't immediately just returned to his family from slavery, but it does change the perspective on our situation. And maybe more than anything, it gives us hope that we can keep going, even when we feel like we can't on the inside. Knowing that God is with us might not change our circumstances, but it might just change us. It's easy to give in to the hurt we've experienced in life. It's easy to let fear overwhelm us or anger consume us. We have a lot of reasons to let difficult and sometimes unfair situations get the last word. But when we know that God is with us, the uncertainty of life doesn't get the last word. God does. Okay, so before we close, I just want to have a couple practical things to think about. Like, what does this actually look for us in normal life? I don't think there are any formulas or easy answers for getting through hard times, but here are just 2 main things for you to think about in the meantime. The first thing is just be real. Feel your feelings. In a time like this, it's so important that we don't just kind of gloss over what we feel and brush it off or stuff it down inside us, but that we actually allow ourselves to just kind of feel what we feel in the moment, whatever kind of emotion that might be. I mean, all throughout the Bible, you see people going through tons of difficulties in life. And there are many accounts of them being real and honest with God about their struggles. There are no cliches to make the hard times go away that you see in the Bible. And our job then isn't just to kind of suck it up and try to toughen up and act like everything is okay. Because if we believe that God is with us, we can know that God is more than okay with our doubts and our honest questions and pains in life. God wants to hear that from us. And then the second thing is just remind yourself and your friends that God is with you, that God is present. We need to remember that right now more than any time. And here's a spoiler alert. In the story we're reading with Joseph, things actually do work for him in the end. We know that because we can read the whole story in the Bible. But when Joseph was in this hard time in his life, he didn't really know how the story was going to end. All Joseph could really do is face another day just wondering how things would turn out for him. But Joseph chose to hold on to one thing that got him through it all, that God was with him. In moments in life where it seems the toughest, that's when this reminder is most important. God is with you and your story isn't over yet. You guys, our life is gonna be full of moments where we don't know what to do with our pain. And as we finish up today, I just wanna remind you guys, that's one of the reasons we think small groups are so important. If you're a brand new sixth grader joining us today, we have small groups here because we think that we shouldn't go through life alone. And when we have those moments in life that we're so shocked and we have like that kind of shocked emoji with no words, we need people to turn to be there with us and to remind us that God is with us too. So remember, when there's nothing you can do, when you have that kind of shock emoji in your life, know that God is with you, and that changes things.